Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of College Football Game Day Live. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by the godfather of recruiting, Mike Farrell of Mike Farrell Sports. Over the next 60 minutes, Mike and I will handicap the 12 bowl games between December 28th and December 30th. We have a lot to get to today, so let's get right into it. We're going to begin with the Military Bowl in Annapolis, Maryland on Wednesday, December 28th. At 1 p.m. Eastern. Duke is a 3-point favorite against UCF. We have a total on this game of 62.5. Mike, who do you like in the Military Bowl?
I think this is going to be a defensive struggle of sorts. Duke is a pretty good defensive team. Mike Elko's got a good, fingerprint on their defense. They stop the run well. We know that UCF has, obviously they're passing quarterbacks in the portal. So that's not good. John Rice Plumlee, who you hated on all season long, is a guy that I like as a runner, but he's not really an elite passer. I think they're going to stuff him a little bit. Blue Devils are very good against the spread. This season, they've won money, 5-1 in the last 6 games overall. They usually cover the line. They're usually the underdog. But in this case, I always like UCF, but I'm going to take Duke here because I think this is a better matchup for the better defense, and I think they have the better defense. And I would parlay this with the under. This is a high number. This could be a high-scoring game, but I doubt it. There's going to be a whole lot of running on both sides here. The over is the trend. The over is 4-1 for the Knights in the last 5 games, and 6-0 in the last 6 bowl games for the Blue Devils over. But take the under here; it's a high number, and take Duke with that quarterback situation at UCF.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned Mikey Keenan in the transfer portal, which is a big deal with the health issues that John Rice Plumlee has had down the stretch. John Rice Plumlee has had the shoulder issue, the hamstring issue most recently, but he's had it throughout November. He also had the concussion issue. He has not finished or even played in 5 of the last 6 games for UCF. That brings Thomas Castellanos, the QB3 for UCF, potentially to the 4 if John Rice Plumlee cannot finish this game. UCF also out the door for them. Their wide receiver 1, Ryan O'Keefe. They also have Jean Baptiste, one of their best defenders, out the door, the linebacker, and also their top cornerback, Devontae Brown. All starters. They're all high impact players. UCF sort of stumbled down the stretch because of John Rice Plumlee, his health issues. Duke, meanwhile, sort of off the radar. They played really well down the stretch, and the breakout season that they had going 8-4. I really like the way that Duke plays, and the breakout, like I was mentioning. Duke can play multiple on offense in a way that UCF can't. I really like the way that they play. I'm going to lay the points with Duke in that game. I think that they're going to win it. Moving on to the next game, the Liberty Bowl. In that one, same day kickoff there. We have a 5:30 Eastern kickoff on Wednesday, the 28th. Arkansas is a 3-point favorite in the market right now with a total of 69. Who do you like in that one, Mike?
I'm going to make you happy. I'm going to take Kansas here. Arkansas is a bit of a mess. I mean, they've lost so many players to the portal. It's hard to figure out what this roster is all about, how interested they're going to be in this bowl game. It was a disappointing year for Sam Pittman. Meanwhile, Kansas hasn't been to a bowl game in 100 years. They're going to be very excited about this. This is almost like a New Year's Six bowl to them. They haven't lost nearly as much of their roster to attrition as well to, the portal itself. I like Sam Pittman as a coach. I don't like Kansas's defense. So I'm leaning towards Kansas to cover this in a high-scoring game. I like Kansas and the over.
I like where your head's at in that one. And yeah, you're totally right. Kansas lost very little in terms of opt-outs in this game. Arkansas lost a metric ton. Jaden Hazelwood, their top receiver out in this one. Keetron Jackson, another starting receiver, has opted out. Warren Thompson, one of the top backup wide receivers in the transfer portal as well, which matters because of the 2 starters being out. Trey Knox, a former wide receiver who was starting at tight end for them, has also transferred out. Starting center Ricky Stromberg has also opted out. And then a whole bunch of starting defenders as well, most notably Drew Sanders, their top linebacker, but also Bumper Pool, and then multiple guys in the secondary.
Catalan's gone.
Yeah, Catalan's injured. Also, Miles Slusher has quit the team, and he transferred out as well. Because of all that different stuff, my adjusted line on this one has shifted all the way to Kansas being favored during the season. If both these teams were at full strength, on a neutral field, I think my adjusted line would have been Arkansas by something like 5 or 6 points, but it shifted all the way to Kansas being favored by 2 points. And then you have to add in the motivation. Kansas hasn't played in a bowl game since 2008. That was so long ago, Mike. I was a senior in college at Kansas at that time. Kansas prioritized obviously getting back to the ball. They talked about it all season long. They were able to persevere through their quarterback being injured to get there. Kansas has a top 20 offense in the nation by all the advanced metrics this season, despite playing through their starting quarterback being injured, Jalen Daniels. And now Jalen Daniels is back to being fully healthy for the first time since early October. I really like Kansas in this game. They were able to move the ball all season despite Daniels being injured, and now he's back. They're going to be able to slice up Arkansas defense. And I like what you said about this game being a shootout. Arkansas is going to be able to move the ball on this crappy Kansas defense, but with Arkansas, their defense being depreciated, Kansas certainly going to be able to move the ball on them as well. And getting the 3 points with Kansas, I'm going to take that, and I think Kansas is going to win this game outright as well. Moving to the next one on that Wednesday. We This one is an 8 p.m. Eastern kickoff on that day. The Holiday Bowl in San Diego, California. Oregon is laying 14 and a half points live in the market right now in a game that has a whole bunch of opt-outs. Oregon against North Carolina in that one. Like I said, 14 and a half point favorite, 73 and a half point total in this one. I'll run through the opt-outs really quick because we have a whole bunch. I'll try to stick just to the notable ones. Oregon has a whole bunch of tertiary ones, but some of the ones there, Dante Thornton, a kid who was playing more down the stretch, wide receiver, and Justin Flo, who is playing a little bit down the stretch as well, ballyhooed linebacker, and then specifically their lockdown corner Christian Gonzalez for the Ducks. Then on the North Carolina side, Joshua Downs, their stud speed merchant wide receiver, and then their secondary specifically on the North Carolina side got absolutely decimated. Tony Grimes, Storm Duck, and Cameron Kelly opting out. Mike, who do you like in that game?
So the over strikes me first because there's no way North Carolina lost their entire defense pretty much, which wasn't a good defense, but they're still going to be playing a lot of young guys with not a lot of experience going against an Oregon offense where Bo Nix is coming back. They still have a lot of weapons despite some losses to the portal and to the NFL. But I like the over first. The line is really high. You know, I think Oregon's going to really thump them. I think it's going to be a high scoring game and they might win by 20. But I prefer the over here. I think it's going to be just a sort of a shootout where Oregon's probably going to put up 40. North Carolina's going to put up, I don't know, 38, something like crazy like that. I wouldn't take the side, but I would take the over here.
Yeah, my adjusted line when I'm trying to do my best to bake in all the opt outs and everything like that. My adjusted line came out at Oregon minus 15.1, which is really close to what the Vegas line is. So I'm going to stay away from that handicap. But my adjusted total on this game is actually 80. So Mike, I'm in total agreement with you. I'm going with the over on this one. In the regular season, both these teams had top 15 offenses, SP plus, and both of them were 65th or lower in terms of defense. Oregon was the one that had the 65th SP plus defense, and UNC was lower than 100th. And like you mentioned, both teams lost very key defenders. UNC, it's like, how could the backups be worse than what they lost? But they are, I suppose, I mean, in UNC, the guys they lost were sort of ballyhooed recruits, Grimes specifically, who had transferred to Texas A&M. But the big guys on offense are all staying. Bo Nix, Drake May specifically. This game is going to be a shootout and a crazy shootout at that. You're taking aim at these defenses that were bad as is, and now they've been riddled with all these defections. I'm going to say something like 48-31 type Oregon win or something like that. I'm going to go over on this one. Moving to the next one, the Texas Bowl in Houston, Texas. We are now moving on to Thursday, December 29th. This is a 2 p.m. kickoff on that day. We have Ole Miss and Texas Tech. I'm sorry, this one's actually on Wednesday, the 28th. Pardon me, 9 p.m. On this one. Ole Miss and Texas Tech. Ole Miss is favored by 3.5 points in this one, with a total of 69.5. Who do you like in this one, Mike?
I think that the total's too high for me. I know you're going to disagree, but I think that total's too high. But I like the side here. I like Ole Miss to cover this. Ole Miss kind of floundered down the stretch. The Lane Kiffin distractions were in everybody's heads. They didn't play that well. He's back. I think this team is going to be refocused. Their losses were to better football teams than Texas Tech's losses. I like what Joey McGuire is doing there. I think they held their own in a Big 12 that was looked great and wasn't as great and wasn't as deep. Old Miss knows how to play with the big boys. I think they're going to be focused with their coach back, despite losses on either side. Of course, we've got portal losses. We've got everything that goes into a bowl game. Old Miss is going to cover this one by I'd say they're going to win by a touchdown. So lay the 3.5.
I'm going to go over on this one. Ole Miss plays at such a quick tempo, that the fastest in the nation. When you look at the adjusted tempo, they obviously they have such a good rushing offense. That's the thing that is held served the entire season. They're getting the emotional boost with Lane Kiffin having turned down Auburn and everything like that, and then everybody returned. You look at these other games that we talked about. We have to go through all these different opt outs and stuff. Ole Miss didn't have as many. You're mostly talking about backups and stuff like that. Like Altmaier and some of those guys. And then on Texas Tech, it's mostly the same. You had the injury earlier in the season to Tyree Wilson, which was unfortunate. But then and Baron Morton, I suppose as well. He's questionable. But then like Donovan Smith, guys like that. But Texas Tech can put up points as well. It looks like it's going to be Shuck starting again for them. I think both these teams are going to put up points, so I'm going to go over in that one as well. Moving on to the next game on our docket. Now we're moving on to Thursday the 29th. This is a 2 p.m. Eastern kickoff in the Pinstripe Bowl in the Bronx. Minnesota has now moved up to being a 10-point favorite against Syracuse, who has sort of a de facto home game here. We have a total on this one of 42 points. Mike, who do you like in this one?
I like Minnesota. I mean, Syracuse, you'd think, okay, it's a de facto home game, as you mentioned, but they're a dome team. This is going to be a cold football game. It's going to be a run-focused football game. It's going to be who's stronger, who's bigger, who can wear you down. And Minnesota's made for this type of weather and this type of game. Now, I don't know if it's snow. I don't know. Maybe it'll be unseasonably warm. I don't know. But I just know in a cold game, Syracuse has been horrible down the stretch, just absolutely horrible, not just in games, but against the spread. You've lost money if you took Syracuse down the stretch. I think they were 0-5 in the last 5 games against the spread. Minnesota is a solid team that usually covers 10-5 in the last 15 games against the spread. It's not great, but it's certainly not bad. They're going to run over Syracuse. Syracuse has some key opt-outs here. And I just think that defense was kind of held up. They lost their defensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator. They're a mess. They're an absolute mess. Take Minnesota. They could win this game by 20 points.
Yeah, Mike, and to your point, and first of all, the coordinator thing, Robert and he's gone to NC State. Tony White, the defensive coordinator, he's gone to Nebraska, and then the huge opt out on Syracuse is Sean Tucker. They do have other ones. They have a couple in the secondary. There's an injury in the secondary. There's a couple transfers in the secondary. They have a couple. They have an injury in the defensive front seven. They have a couple transfers in the defensive front seven. But the huge opt out there is Sean Tucker, just absolutely enormous. We see in the past couple of years when Sean Tucker's out, the whole offense just craters. And when Syracuse jumps up, it's when Sean Tucker's playing and when he's playing well. On the Minnesota side, when Tanner Morgan went down with injury, Minnesota's offense played down. When Kali Akmanis came in, the offense played down a bit, but it's not as precipitous as when Sean Tucker has been out for Syracuse. I do think it's going to be Kali Akmanis again for Minnesota. I've heard some differing things from my Minnesota sources about that. I like what I'm hearing is that Tanner Morgan is back in a limited capacity at practices. I've heard that there's a shot that we see Tanner Morgan like in what could be a swan song for him. Like that there could be interest if Tanner Morgan wants to play in his last game, that the coaching staff could allow him to do that. But like, that probably they're going to allow Kaliakmanis to finish out the season. So I like if, in terms of your handicap, you should assume that this is going to be Kaliakmanis's game, and sort of bake that in or whatever. And sort of assume that Minnesota's not going to have much of a passing attack again, because it's not just that
The
Tanner
quarterbacks
Morgan.
don't matter. They
Yeah,
don't matter
his
at all.
injury. It's also
It's
Ottman Bell's, right? Like they didn't have much of a receiving core
well,
before, but then when Ottman
it's
Bell got hurt as
it's
well.
it's going to be the 330-pound offensive lineman that PJ Fleck loves, leaning on those Syracuse guys and that depleted defense, and run, and wear them down and destroy them.
And that's exactly right. It's been the Mo Ibrahim show. Mo Ibrahim has been awesome again this year, as he's been throughout his career when he's been healthy. And here's where the rubber meets the road of this handicap. And this line getting up to 10 with Sean Tucker being out, and why I think this is correct. Not only is Syracuse's offense crater when Tucker's out, the biggest weakness of the Syracuse team all season, their run defense stinks. 122nd in the nation in success rate against the run. Minnesota, all they can do on offense when Kaliakmanis is in, is run the ball, and they're still super good at it. They are going to run the ball down Syracuse's throat. This one is Minnesota or stay away. Lay whatever you got to.
I like the under
Minnesota all
too.
the way in that one.
It's 42 is I like the under too. I think this could be like a, you know, I don't know, like a 30-10 type of pasting, but I don't think it's going to go over 42.
Minnesota plays great defense. I mean, like Joe Rossi is a super underrated coach, right? Like, and he probably should be a head coach like soon. Maybe he already should have been, but he's going to shut out the lights on what is going to be a one-dimensional Syracuse offense that doesn't have its coordinator either. So yeah, that one is Minnesota all the way. Moving on to our next one, the Alamo Bowl on Thursday, December 29th. This is a 9 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Texas laying 4 points against Washington. We have a total on this one of 67.5. Mike, who do you like in the Alamo Bowl between Texas and Washington?
Ah, and let's not forget Florida State, Oklahoma. So we'll go back to that one because that's the
Oh, I
Cheez-It
totally
Bowl.
skipped. Oh,
Yeah, but it's okay. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry, Texas. I'm
We're in
sorry,
on
Florida
Texas.
State and
No, no,
Oklahoma.
no, 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 because that one's my big money game. I mean, that's one you're going to lay your mortgage on. So we'll get to Florida State in a second. But Texas, both of these teams have good news in the offseason. Okay. Texas has lost a lot of people. Quinn Ewers is developing. Obviously, things are going well in the recruiting department there. There's a lot of excitement. Of course, Bijan Robinson not being in is going to hurt them. Michael Penix coming back for Washington is good news. I mean, both these teams are kind of on a high. But Bijan is Bijan. Without him, I don't trust Texas. I don't trust their offense even kind of with him. So I'm going to take Washington here. And I think we're both going to agree on this. It's just I don't know what I'm going to get from Texas in a bowl game. I know there's, like I said, there's positivity, momentum towards next season, but I don't know if they give a crap about this. I know Washington does. I know they do. They're building momentum, and DeBauer has his team headed in the right direction. So give me Washington.
1000%. You talk again, going back to the opt-out thing, and I was talking about this with a handicapper last night, actually, about I, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm about to. I've started out really hot during bowl season. Like at this point, it's like 11-2 against the spread, or 12-2 against the spread, something like that on the sides. And, he was asking me like about it, like, how, whatever. And I did well last year as well. Opt-outs inform a lot of the handicaps now. It's a different ball game now with handicapping the sides of the bowls than it was 2 years ago, right? The opt-outs are informing a lot of what you see with these side handicaps or whatever. This game is a great example of it, where on the Texas side, you have so many different defections. On the Washington side, they have very few. Michael Penix, who is worth a whole bunch of points on the side, he comes out and says emphatically, I am playing. I've never played in a bowl game before. I want to play in this game. I'm super stoked about playing in this game. Michael Penix, who started his career, played most of it in Indiana, never got to play in a bowl game. In part the COVID season where they were good, whatever, he didn't get to play in a bowl game. So he really wants to play in it. On the Texas side, Bijan Robinson has opted out, which makes sense. His awesome backup, Roshan Johnson, also opted out. Roshan Johnson going to play in the NFL for a long time, but Texas goes from arguably the best running back room in America to now I mean, they have very talented running backs behind them, but kids who haven't played a lot, right? So we'll see how that goes. But then also, their wide receiver, they still have the good receivers, but the depth has taken a big shot. They had a couple offensive linemen who have transferred out. Their edges, the depth took a big shots, and then Overshown. He has also opted out as well. So Texas lost a lot of value there. When you add it all up, my line on that game became a pick 'em. Whereas the Vegas line, it took a long time to even come down to 4. So the ticket I got on this one, I think I have Washington +6 or Washington +5.5 or whatever. Now it's down to 4. I'm still happy taking Washington +4 on that one. I also got the money line tickets on Washington, everything like that. Washington going to be able to throw all over Texas in this game. So I'm taking Washington in this one, and I'm also taking Washington outright in that game as well. And now I'll move back to Florida State and Oklahoma. I apologize to Florida State in this one. I apologize to you, Mike. Definitely not apologizing to Oklahoma. The disrespect to Oklahoma was intended in this one. But let's move back to the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, Florida. We'll rewind the clock to 5:30 Eastern on Thursday, December 29th, and go and bring it to Orlando, Florida. Mike, who do you like in the Cheez-It Bowl?
Norvell's going to be taking the Cheez-It bath because this is to
Yes.
me easy. There's two elements here that I think are easy. The line, take the side. Florida State is a team that believes in themselves. They had a 9-3 season. Nobody expected them to be this good, including me. They've got excellent quarterback play, which we haven't seen in quite some time. They've really killed it in the transfer portal. A lot of guys are buying in here. They're looking at this as a big, big game for them. Oklahoma's defense is wretched. It's awful. They have no chance of holding down the Florida State offense in this game. So I like the over as well. I think this is going to be like, this could be a 50-point, not win, but a 50 points on Florida State side. And maybe, Oklahoma comes back and gets in the 30s. But I don't do adjusted lines like you do. But when I see 66 for this, I think more 78. And when I see this line of 9, I think more 15. So take Florida State, parlay it with the over, and make a ton of money.
1,000%. This game is we're recording. This is going to come out a little bit later than the day we're recording, but we're recording this on Friday, December 23rd. Last night, live from when we're recording this, it was Baylor Air Force. This game is a bigger example of what we saw last night, where it was Baylor and Air Force, where Air Force was a really bad matchup for Baylor, even if they'd both been at full strength, because Air Force had an awesome rushing attack and Baylor had a bad run defense, even as is. But then Baylor suffered all these defections, Siaki Ika, and then also, the 358-pound, head knocker in the middle. And then also Baylor's best run defender on the edge also opted out. Then 2 of their starting corners, and then also 2 offensive linemen that Baylor had, and Air Force had none. Or whatever. The market didn't adjust to it at all. It was still the same line even after that, going back to my initial point about how the market just doesn't adjust for these opt-outs at all. And even in these bad matchup games, but the adjustments that the market doesn't make at all. This is another game sort of like that. Oregon State and Florida earlier in bowl season was another example of this, of one where it's a mismatch as is, and then you have the opt-outs on one side and the market doesn't adjust. This is Florida State and Oklahoma is another example of this. Florida State, they don't really have the opt-outs or the defections, and they match up super duper good here. Florida State, they come out. Jordan Travis, the star quarterback, he says that he's playing in this game and he's returning next year. Jared Verse says he's playing in this game. The stud edge rusher, Jamie Robinson, the star safety, they all say that they're playing in this game. On and on and on. Oklahoma, who had the terrible season, they have all these opt-outs. Eric Gray, who was one of the shining lights of their offense, he opts out and he goes into the NFL draft. Theo Weiss is out. Both the starting tackles, Wanya Morris and Anton Harrison, who are both standouts. They opt out. They go into the draft. Jalen Redmond, the defensive tackle, he leaves as well. And then they had transfers in the linebacking core, in the cornerback room. They have an injury in the linebacking core as well. You mentioned it, Mike. Their defense stunk as is. Anybody can run on Oklahoma. That was even at full strength. Florida State's rushing attack is one of the best in the nation. Even if this one was straight up, I would still be taking Florida State to cover this number. With the opt outs, I think Florida State is going to blast Oklahoma. Florida State minus whatever. At this number, absolutely.
This is
I'm
Florida,
all over.
Oregon State. This is Florida, Oregon State. Again, people
Yes.
know Oklahoma better than they do. I mean, people know Florida State better than they did Oregon State, right? Oregon State people didn't really know. Florida's a big brand, blah blah blah. This is the same situation. This is going to be a blowout. There's no doubt about it. There's no way to stop this offense, and so this is probably as high as we were on Oregon State covering that, and turned up 30-3 with an embarrassing field goal to stop it, a shutout streak or whatever. This is going to be the same way. Oklahoma is going to claw their way back to some respectability, but they're going to lose this game by 3 touchdowns at least.
My whole overarching point is there's it's so hard to find value in the betting market because it is so sharp, but you can find it in bowl season with these opt-outs. It's one of the last frontiers where you actually can. And if you want an example of my point, go back to the live show that Mike and I did and go back and listen to when we were talking about Florida and Oregon State. Go back and listen to what Mike was saying about Jack Miller. Just go back and listen to those 5 minutes and then go back and look at what the market was doing with that line in the 2 hour lead up to kickoff. It went from Oregon State minus 10 to Oregon State minus 8. VSIN had me on their show in the 2 hour lead up to that. And the guy asked me, he's like, Thor, we know that you're on Oregon State minus 10. Are you nervous that the line has gone down to only Oregon State minus 8? And I was like, no. And he's like, why not? There's all this heavy money coming in on Florida. And I was like, I don't care. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, because Florida started Jack Miller and all these backups, and Oregon State's going to deck them. It's like, yeah, I mean, Florida State walked into that game all gun. It just, from a personnel standpoint, it just is what it is. You can find the value with the opt out stuff in bowl season in a way that you can't during the regular season. Again, it's sort of the last frontier with stuff like that. The market just misses on stuff like that if you're willing to do the digging with it. So just wanted to make that point. Guys, if you want I'm going to put it up on the screen really quick for those watching this.
You did it. You nailed it.
I did it, guys. If you
Nailed
want
it.
a shot to win, Mike and I are very excited about this because this giveaway is only going on for a little bit longer through the holiday season. But if you and Mike and I want you guys to win this, if you want a shot to win a signed Isaiah McKenzie Buffalo Bills mini helmet, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now. Comment below on this video, and that's it. We will be announcing a winner right here on this channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your
You got to comment. You got to say we're handsome or something, or say, this is our lame attempt at Travis Hunter. We're looking for 100,000 subscribers to this, and we'll let you know the lock of the week.
Mike, I loved your joke about the Travis Hunter when you said if you get 100,000, then you would announce where he was going.
I mean, come on, man! You don't even get me started on these kids.
Mike, you had to love when Travis Hunter pulled off that ploy to get 100,000 when we all knew he was going to. When Dion had said the week before, like, guys, he's coming to Colorado.
And
then Travis Hunter's like, I'll announce when.
Right, you got over 150,000, and people are too lazy to unsubscribe, so he's gonna. It's genius, but it's idiotic. So for us, we're giving away something tangible, something real, something you could physically hold instead of garbage information that we already knew, like Travis Hunter did.
I wish I was eligible. I put it up there.
Put it right up there. Somebody walked into my.
I don't think I am.
Somebody walked into my place last week, and they're a big Bills fan. They go, "You don't have any Bills helmets." I did. I used to have an O.J. Simpson, but I would certainly put Isaiah McKenzie right up there.
I would put up IJ over O.J. Simpson for sure. Yeah. Moving on to our next game. We've moved on to we're getting near the new year, Mike. We're now on to Friday, December 30th. This is a noon kickoff. Maryland against North Carolina State. And oh my gosh, Mike, we've reached the Mayo Bowl. And there was an enormous announcement by the Mayo Bowl yesterday. They confirmed that both coaches have confirmed that they will receive the Mayo Bowl if indeed they win. So we're going to get the Mayo bath like we did last year when Shane Beamer won. I don't know if Dennis Dodd is going to complain about it again. I'm guessing he learned his lesson last year when he
Oh,
got
does
dunked on by
complain.
Shane Beamer after they won. But Maryland is a 1.5-point favorite right now in the market. We have a total on this game of 47. What side do you like in this one, Mike?
So before we even get to why I like Maryland in this game, and I think it's going to be a close game. I think both teams have, you know, um, they have solid defenses. We got some quarterback issues, obviously, at NC State, but they're growing through those with their young quarterback. But I like the way Maryland has sort of played this season. They've been very under the radar in a very difficult Big Ten. And I know people say the Big Ten's overrated, but their division is not. And they've been competitive in a lot of football games. They've given some tough teams a difficult time. Mike Locksley is a good coach. He's going to have his team focused and ready to play here. Doran's a good coach too, but I think they're a little bit undermanned. So give me Maryland to cover this one in like maybe a 27-23 type of win. And also, there's 100% no doubt in my mind that Mike Locksley would look better with mayonnaise on his head than Dave Doran would. 100%. I mean, I've known Locksley for 25 years. I want to see Mayo on his bald head as much as anything I want this bowl season, and it's going to happen.
Man, yeah, Doran is Doran's a little more, how do you say, surly, I think.
Oh,
So
he's a
yeah,
cranky son of a bitch. He would not like it at all. Locksley would be like, "Oh wait, whatever."
yeah, but we haven't had many disagreements in this show, Mike. But this one we got a disagreement. And a part of it is I'm struggling to see, going back to the opt outs, right? Like NC State, in their instance on offense, it's the injuries, right? Like Leary, was injured. Now he's out the door. He's transferring to Kentucky, but he wouldn't have played anyway because he's injured. And then now they're down the depth chart in with their quarterback injuries, right? We actually don't know who's going to start this game. Is it going to be MJ Morris? Is it going to be the Finley kid? It seems like they soured on that Jack Chambers kid real quick. So I think it's going to be.
Wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. All that kid could do is scramble around. He can't throw. But it's going to be one of those two kids. It's going to be MJ Morris if he can go. If not, it's going to be the Finley kid. So you have that. We know that's what it's going to be. On the Maryland side, though, Tagovailoa was able to come back. He was banged up at the end of the year, but he played in the finale. He was able to finish it. So we know we're going to get him. So that's good. But Maryland had all the defections in the wide receiver room. That wide receiver room was awesome when it was at full strength. But they Dante Demas opted out for the NFL draft. Jacob Copeland opted out for the NFL draft. Raheem Jarrett opted out for the NFL draft. And then in addition to that, CJ Dupree, who, Mike, as you know, transferring out, that kid, everyone came after him in the transfer portal. He was like
between Alabama and Ohio State.
Yeah, and tossing all this NIL money. He was like the pretty girl at the dance when he entered the transfer portal. I heard some of I'm sure you heard a lot more than I did, but I saw some of the rumors about some of the figures that were being tossed to Mr. CJ Dupree. Anyway, so like Tagovailoa, who had all these weapons at the beginning of the season, now it is shrunk all the way down to Jayshon Jones, and then the other tight end that he had, the platoon guy, Dykes, Corey Dykes, and not a lot else. And then Maryland, the run game, which they basically just used as, in baseball parlance, a get me over pitch. You wonder now, will they have to run a little bit more? NC State, they have a frisky defense, right? And they didn't lose as many defenders, right? So like NC State retains their frisky defense. You wonder if they'll be able to shut out the lights on that Maryland offense now that Maryland's offense is depreciated now. Because Tagovailoa, he's basically a poor man's version of his brother, maybe even a homeless man's version of his brother. And now that he doesn't have all those weapons, again, can they shut out the lights on it in a more effective way than Maryland's defense, which definitely is not as good, that they can do against the NC State offense that is playing with the kid or whatever. So I'm going to go in a wonky game, with some of these offenses that are going to look different than certainly than they did at the beginning of the season. But I'm going to side with NC State. My adjusted number, and you have to make some situational assumptions here for sure, but trying to bake all this different stuff in, my adjusted number became NC State by 3.6. I Who knows if I'm making some missteps with the way that I'm baking some of this stuff in, but I do like NC State in that one. And you do have to say too, it's more of a home field advantage here for NC State with the game being played in Charlotte. So we'll see how that
Yeah,
one plays out.
the
Uh,
under is a
Good play here too. I think that 47 is too high.
Yes, and Mike, to your point that with it being a 47, my systems adjusted total on that one is 43. So would definitely agree with you on that one. Moving to our next game on Friday, December 30th, we got the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas, 2 p.m. Eastern kickoff in this one. We got a weird line in this one, Mike. UCLA only favored by 3.5 against Pittsburgh, despite a bevy of opt-outs that I will get to in just 1 second. We got a total on this one of 54.5. Let me run through the opt-outs in this one really quick. We don't have many right this second on UCLA. In fact, we basically don't have any ones of note on UCLA at the moment. There are I guess status checks that before you make your bet, I guess that you'd want to check on UCLA. That the ones to think about, it's Dorian Thompson Robinson, Zach Charbonnet, and Jake Bobo. I checked with a source yesterday because this line had come all the way down to UCLA -3, and I was scratching my head so much because my adjusted line on this game, based on the Pittsburgh opt-outs that I'll bring up in a second, have become UCLA -16.1, which you guys will understand in a second when I go through them. But I asked him for the odds that those got, what he had heard, like if they were going to opt out. And he said he thinks that DTR will end up playing. He said 75, he thought 75% on DTR. He said he thinks that Charbonnet will end up opting out, but he is not yet. He said 10% on Charbonnet. He thinks Bobo ends up playing. He said 100% on Bobo. Who knows? Those guys haven't announced yet. So, again, just guessing as of yesterday. The on the Pittsburgh side, you ready for this? Keaton Slovis he's transferring. He's out the door. Nick Patty, he's had an ankle injury for most of the season. He's back now. He's practicing with the ones. Nick Yarnell, their quarterback 3. He was in an open competition with Patty, but he has been sick for most of December, so he has fallen behind in that competition. I don't know if he's going to play or not. Izzy Abaconda, who is their breakout starter running back, he has opted out and into the NFL draft. 2 of their top rotational receivers, Jalen Barden and Jaden Bradley, have transferred. They're gone. Jared Wayne, their top wide receiver, has not announced, but it was sort of troubling. They asked Narduzzi about his status, and he was very non-committal about it. So you'll have to watch on that. A couple offensive tackles, Gabe Huey and Carter Warren, have both opted out. They basically shared one of the starting tackle jobs this year. So Pitt is down to their tackle 4 at one of the tackle spots, and then one of the other starting tackles is still there. The defensive tackle Elijah Cansey is opted into the NFL draft, one of the best defensive tackles in all of America, and he's going to be a stud in the NFL for a while. John Morgan, the third and edge rusher, he's really good. He's transferring. And then they had a cluster of edge defections and or injuries. Nate Temple is injured. Sam Williams in the transfer portal. Deslin Alexander, a solid player, he opted out. And then this kid named Baladondo is injured. We don't know if he's going to play or not. They could really use him with all the other stuff there on the edge. Then starting inside linebacker, this kid Dennis, he made all the line calls. He has opted out into the NFL draft. Starting safety Hill has opted out. And then this Tallender kid, another safety, he is in the transfer portal. Mike, with all that being said on the Pitt side, that's why my line had gotten all the way to UCLA -16.1, my adjusted line. Now, that being said, it doesn't account for any of the hypotheticals on the UCLA side. If they don't have any, though, that's what my adjusted line will be. Obviously, if DTR or Charbonnet or any of that stuff, if that were to come to fruition, the thing would change. But for me, the line is very, very suspicious and or weird. With all that being said, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, this is a really low line. UCLA should blast them. Pitt's a team has sort of been disappointing this season, even with all those players you just mentioned. They're going to have to play a whole lot of young guys, a whole lot of inexperience. I just don't see a way that they're going to be able to stay in this football game, even if UCLA does have some late opt-outs or some guys that aren't going to play. This is a better football team. So take UCLA, easily cover this by 10 points. This is kind of easy money, except for the one thing you worry about a line that's so crazy like this is somebody knows something, and I don't know what that is. Maybe the bus will break down and UCLA won't show up to the stadium. But this makes no sense. Take UCLA.
It makes no sense. And this is one where someone knows something that I don't. You can take my money, Vegas. Like this is one. If this is a stick me up, you can have it. I've made my bet. I've made my bet. Go ahead and take it. If Nick Patty, who hasn't played all year with the leg injury, if he can come in and rise up against, even if DTR ends up opting out and Charbonnet ends up opting out and Bobo is a surprise opt out, and even if UCLA has a couple more, it would take all three of those guys opting out and a couple more UCLA guys opting out and no other Pitt guys opting out for my line to even catch up to where the Vegas line is right now. That's what's so stunning about where this line is. Yeah, I mean it's suspicious, I guess, but like it's the discrepancy is so enormous that like it's not just one or two things that it would take for it to line up. It is numerous ones. Like it would take a cataclysmic event for the things to line up. And yeah, it's suspicious. But like I said before, like I've started to notice over the last couple of years with this during the regular seasons, there are times where like there will be information that it's not that I miss it, it's that I don't have access to that information. Like the COVID season was a great example where like there was this one game during the COVID season where a Boston College game where like right before the game, Jerkovic and I think it was Garwo. They were both ruled out like right before the game, and the line was weird. And I was on Boston College, and I just kicked myself for not realizing that something was off. But like whatever. But like in bowl season with the opt outs, I just don't think the market these past couple years accurately bakes them in, and I'm not sure why. And so with this game and other ones like it, the Baylor Air Force one, the Oregon State Florida one, Florida State Oklahoma. I just for whatever reason the market just does not seem to be accurately baking the opt outs in. So if there's something off with this that I'm just not understanding, if a mass defection for UCLA is coming, I whatever. You can have my money. I've made enough from bowl season so far. I'm taking UCLA. It just is what it is. I'm laying those points. Mike, moving to our next game here. Same day, Friday, December 30th. This is a 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Notre Dame right now in the market is laying 2. This is another game with a whole bunch of opt-outs against South Carolina, who right now has more of those opt-outs. A team that was playing really well at the end of the season, but this South Carolina team is going to be looking a whole lot different in this game. We have a total in this one of 51.5 in the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. I'll try to run through these ones really quick for you, Mike. The opt-outs on both sides. On the Notre Dame side, Drew Pine, the guy who started for most of the season at quarterback for Notre Dame, he has opted out. The reason he was starting at quarterback is because Tyler Buckner, the guy who began the season as the starter for Notre Dame, was injured. Notre Dame has said that Tyler Buckner has an outside chance of starting this game. He returned to practice in a limited capacity. They said that he has to prove that he's healthy in practices. We'll have to see about that. If he can't do that, Steve Angeli, the young freshman quarterback, he would start the quarterback 3. The big one on offense, the opt out for Notre Dame, Michael Mayer, the one weapon they had in the receiving game, the singular talent, the first round tight end that they have the matchup nightmare. Is going to the NFL, and then Isaiah Foskey, the edge rusher for Notre Dame, he is also going to the NFL draft. The other big one of note for them for Notre Dame, cornerback Cam Hart is injured and will not play in this game. And then for South Carolina, a longer list. Marshawn Lloyd, an NFL talent at running back, he is transferring out, will not play in this game. Um, his backup, Christian Beal Smith, who had transferred in from Wake Forest, he is injured. We don't know if he's going to play. Mike, our mutual friend, I won't say his name, but a guy who goes to South Carolina, he told me that Christian Beal Smith has been walking around campus in a walking boot. We know that he is questionable to play. In this one with the injury that he has had the entire season, or for the latter part of the season. We'll have to see. The beat reporters have said the same thing, so we'll see how that goes. Josh Van, the wide receiver, he is also questionable. Antoine Wells, he is also questionable with an injury. Another receiver, Corey Rucker, is transferring out. Another receiver. The tight end room has gotten even more decimated. Jakeem Bell transferring out. Austin Stogner transferred out. And then Travion Kenyon, who would have played a whole bunch, was the tight end 3. He retired 2 days after those guys announced that they were transferring out. So they fall way down on the depth chart. And then this kid named Chad Terrell, who was like a tight end wide receiver sort of hybrid guy, he's injured. So we don't know if he's going to play. Then on defense for South Carolina, Terrell Dawkins, edge rusher, he's injured. Gilbert Edmond is in the transfer portal. Another edge rusher. Linebacker Mohamed Kaba is injured. Then the big one for South Carolina, Cam Smith opted out, the singular talent at cornerback. And then Darius Rush, the other starting cornerback, he's injured, but he's also opted out. And then one of the starting safeties is transferring out, and another one is injured. Mike, with all that being said, who do you like in that one?
I like South Carolina, and it makes
Okay.
no sense, right? But here's the thing: Notre Dame is favored in this game because it's Notre Dame. Um, it doesn't mean they're going to care about this game. It doesn't mean they're a better football team. It doesn't mean that they're Shane Beamer rallies the troops. Man, he's got a great culture going on there, and this team wants to play for him. Now, again, all the transfers would speak otherwise to that, but honestly, this is a situation where some of these kids, Stogner went back home. G. Bell wanted a better NIL deal. Ends up at Florida State.
Yep.
This is a situation where I think there's a baked in favoritism for Notre Dame here, just because they're the big name and it's a bowl. That's on whatever New Year's Eve. South Carolina is a good football team, despite the losses. They play. They've gotten thumped a few times, but they've been playing very well down the season. Obviously, that one against Clemson, they're on a high. So momentum-wise, care about game-wise, also rally the troops-wise. Okay, we had some guys defect. Forget those guys. I just like South Carolina to cover this game, probably win it outright, because Notre Dame, a questionable quarterback situation scares the heck out of me for them, because if Buckner can't play, I don't know what we're going to get. I just have no idea. And if he does play, how banged up is he going to be?
Yeah, and Mike, I'm with you in this one too. I'm on South Carolina. My adjusted line on this one actually is South Carolina minus 3.9, despite those myriad defections. And I don't know if I'm crazy or what, but South Carolina, they played so well down the stretch. One of those games, what was it against? They blasted Tennessee in the second to the last game. They did that without literally any running backs on the entire roster. So like in Jaheim Bell, who he transferred out or whatever, but that game he functioned as the lead back. Like he ran for over 100 yards in that game, the tight end, the H back or whatever. And behind him, the guys that they were, bringing in the backup running back, they were backup receivers, or they were, functioning as wildcat running, whatever in that game. So like, yeah, I mean, they're in this game, I actually don't know who's going to be the running backs for them in this one, or playing some of these different positions. But Beamer has proven himself as a coach. I trust that he's going to cobble together some of these things. And I also know that their special teams is going to be awesome no matter what. They had the best special teams in America this year. And that was something when he came in, you just sort of assume Beamer ball was going to take off at some point. It did this year, like full force. Beamer ball is here to stay now. They're doing all the things that we saw Frank do at Virginia Tech. The field position's there, the blocking, the kicks is there, all the situational football is there. Notre Dame better be ready for 60 minutes of hell in special teams of like stuff off the edge of I mean, you got to be ready for people screaming off there for the deflected kicks, all that different stuff. South Carolina is going to benefit from the field position game this entire time. And again, you just sort of bake in that South Carolina is going to figure out some of the down the depth chart stuff at some of these positions where you're like, what's going to happen there? And then at the quarterback thing, whereas it seems like Notre Dame's going to have to go with Angeli at quarterback, you have no idea what you're going to get there. You know he's not going to be able to throw to anybody because Notre Dame is way down the depth chart at tight end. You go from a first round tight end in Mayer to who knows. And then they don't have anyone at receiver. Avery Davis was the only kid in the preseason, and then he got injured. So they didn't have anyone at receiver. Now they don't have anybody at tight end, and they don't have a quarterback. South Carolina at least has Spencer Rattler, who's playing awesome down the stretch. So I'm definitely going with South Carolina. I'm going to take those 2 points. Mike, moving on to our next one. Definitely not as marquee of a game here. We also don't have as many opt outs. Although I'll mention just right out the gate, Ohio in this one. We have a I'll also mention 4:30 kickoff on Friday, December 30th in the Arizona Bowl, Tucson, Arizona, Ohio laying 1.2, Wyoming 42.5 point total. Ohio in this game out there starting quarterback Curtis Rourke. Wyoming though does have and Curtis Rourke was the highest rated PFF quarterback this year. They're dropping down to their backup CJ Harris. Ohio doesn't have any other opt-outs. Wyoming though does have a series of defections, unfortunately, at a couple of important positions. Titus Swen, their starting running back in the transfer portal. They also had 3 backup running backs that have status things. Joey Brash, transfer portal at running back, and then 2 other backup running backs, McNeely and James, injured. Top wide receiver Cobbs is in the transfer portal. One of their top edge rushers in the transfer portal, and then their top cornerback is in the transfer portal. Mike, in this one, off the radar game, who do you like in this one?
Well, you got a good offense that you have to question how good they're going to be without their starting quarterback. A horrible offense for Wyoming against an awful Ohio defense. Um, it's a tough game. I'm going to take Ohio. They're 5-0 in their last 5 games of the favorite. They're a good play. They're a consistent play when it comes to being a favorite. Uh, all bets are off on this one though because you just don't know what you're going to get offensively. But Wyoming can't put up any points, so I would lean the under if you don't like the sides because minus one's essentially a pick 'em. 42.5. It's probably going to come under that number. But give me Ohio, and if you want to parlay it, take the under.
Yes, this is one of the true coin flips of the entire bowl season. Like if in the confidence pools, this was like the one that I had like 1 or 2, and with a spread of 1. My adjusted line on this game, I have Wyoming fit. My system has Wyoming favor, but it's by 0.4 points, and the line is Ohio -1. Like I don't see much value here. And then on the total, it's 42.5. My total is 44, so it's not like I see much value there. I do lean Wyoming just by the slightest of margins, because Curtis Rourke, he was the reason that Ohio was doing so good during the season. And he was the highest graded PFF quarterback and everything like that. And now you go down to a CJ Harris who can throw. He can run a little bit, and stuff like that. But a lot of the Ohio offense has been neutered. But then you look at the Wyoming team, they were a run dominant team, and now their top 4 running backs are out. I don't know what's down the depth chart there. It's a total unknown. Are they going to start throwing? I doubt Craig Bull's going to do that. And then their top receivers out too. So even if they try to do that, like you just sort of toss up your hands. And then they play decent defense, but then their top edge rushers out, their top cornerbacks out. I do trust Craig Bull in the postseason and as a coach overall, but like it's just a toss your hands up kind of a game. So I don't see much value either way. I don't really know what I'm going to get. It again. This is a true degenerate game. It's a true you don't know what you're going to get game. And Mike, I'm definitely betting it anyway.
Of
Uh,
course,
move,
of course you are.
Moving on to our last game on the docket for today. Last game on Friday, December 30th, 8 p.m. kickoff. We have the Orange Bowl in Miami Gardens, Florida. Clemson live in the market, 6-point favorite against Tennessee. We have a total on this game of 63.5. A couple injuries and opt-outs of note to get to real quick. Hendon Hooker, obviously, the very unfortunate injury that changed Tennessee's fortune, probably changed the national implications, the college football playoff, and everything like that. Then it also changed, the opt out situation, everything for Tennessee as well. Jalen Hyatt ends up opting out. The may end up going in the first round. This stud slot receiver, the speed merchant. Then Cedric Tillman also opted out. A kid that had struggled with injuries during the season, but probably could have ended up playing in this game. He's opted into the NFL draft. They had a couple other tertiary wide receivers off the bench that went into the transfer portal. So Tennessee's wide receiver depth is also taking a shot. Callaway and Holiday. And then, that's pretty much it for the Tennessee side. Then Clemson, Clemson was one of the only. Was there any other team? Clemson, I actually upgraded their quarterback position because of a transfer with Uagalele transferring and then putting in Klubnik or whatever. But Uagalele transferred, but again, they're upgrading a quarterback with Klubnik should have been starting in September. But then let's see. Oh, Miles Murphy opting into the NFL draft. That hurts. Xavier Thomas, another edge rusher, was injured before. Justin Foster had left the team earlier in the fall. Another edge rusher. So the edge position, which earlier this season was just super duper deep. The depth is way shallower there now. And then Trenton Simpson was another opt out on the Clemson side. And Fred Davis, the third, or Fred Davis the second, is in the transfer portal. The cornerback, and Malcolm Green, another cornerback, is injured. Mike, in Clemson, Tennessee, who do you like?
I like Clemson. Tennessee was
A good team against the spread all season long, 9-3, but that was with their offense. The offense is going to take a big, drop down here. I don't believe in Joe Milton. I don't believe in, Brew McCoy's a good wide receiver, but the depth at wide receiver is kind of shot. Clemson's culture, Dabo culture, everything's culture. Miles Murphy broken up that he has to opt out. Trenton Simpson broken up that they opt out. Brian Brzee looks like he's going to play in this game, although I think that decision's still sort of pending. But that it comes down to the quarterback. They play harder for Klubnik. They play as a team better. Will Shipley still is an effective running back. But this is a team that when you saw Klubnik come in when things were struggling for them, and I have no idea why he didn't play in the South Carolina game. But when he came in against Syracuse, he didn't throw the ball a lot. Didn't have to. But the energy was different. You watch the Jets game, and I know this is being taped on Friday, but Zach Wilson goes out. All of a sudden, the team plays harder. DJ's gone. This team's going to play harder. So give me Clemson to cover here. I don't like the over. I think it's going to come under that.
So well said. So well said. Totally different team when Klubnik came in. It was like a night and day, right? And with Hooker to Milton, it's almost night and day the other way. And you didn't totally get to see it, with the Vanderbilt game or whatever, but Milton is it's just a different deal than with Hendon Hooker. Milton has the physical ability, but he makes wonky decisions and he doesn't have the accuracy or placement. That is going to manifest against a talented defense. And on the Clemson side, you mentioned Brise, KJ Henry, Mescal, and Davis. Mike, you mentioned they're like right now they're practicing. They've all said that they plan to play in the game. It could change, like a day or two before. We've seen that, like Dwayne McBride for UAB. There's been a couple examples earlier in bowl season where they said one thing and then like the day before, even the day of McBride, he got off the plane in the Bahamas. Then he's like, yeah, I'm not playing. So like you never know, like after we get done recording, but those guys, at least they all say that they're going to play. Clemson, if they're at, if those guys all end up playing, that's a bad situation for Joe Milton on that side, especially if Tennessee's with how depreciated their wide receiver room is going to end up being without Hyatt and without Tillman, et cetera, et cetera. I expect that Clemson will be able to shut off the lights there. And then Klubnik with the Clemson offense with Will Shipley, like you mentioned, Tennessee's pass defense, even when it was, at full strength, whatever this season, anybody could throw on Tennessee. Spencer Rattler was in the tank all season long. All he needed, the tonic that Spencer Rattler needed to turn back the clock to freshman year with Lincoln Riley was to face the Tennessee pass defense. All of a sudden, he was Spencer Rattler again.
Except for Will Levis.
Will Levis can't throw against Tennessee's defense.
Well, okay. Will Levis can't. Nothing can turn around Will Levis's career. But
nobody else can. They can't stop anybody. Even a freshman quarterback like Klubnik, who's going to have the offense a little dumbed down, they can't stop him. You're right.
Exactly. I'm going with Clemson here. Klubnik should have been starting from the very beginning. The Klubnik era begins with a bang. Clemson's going to win that game by double digits. Guys, that is all the time that we have for today. This is the second to the last podcast that me and Mike Farrell are doing, a special bowl podcast on the Betting Pros feed. So join us for the last one that we're going to do, which is going to come out a little bit before the new year for the last of the bowl games that we're going to do. Thank you for joining us for this one. For Mike Farrell, I'm Thor Nystrom for Betting Pros. Good luck with your bets. Enjoy the rest of the bowl games, and we'll see you next time.